I'm not sure what to think about this game. I sent my Chapter 1 write-up to Zach to get his thoughts on it, see if he could give an insight on what it was doing.
I told you before, I don't know how the game does these things. If you're suggesting I put these graphics in the game myself, you're mistaken, because this is the first I've seen any of it. It looks like the game has recreated itself again since I played it. That's not a good sign.
Not a very helpful response, but oh well. I don't know what I expected him to say anyway. As for the game, I'm heading into World 2 today. It's called Gelid. No more actual planets? Well, here's the Gelid board. Glad to see that I actually have Godzilla now. There's quite a variety of levels here. That evil-looking symbol at the bottom right must be my exit. I hope I don't meet up with Red in here. By pressing select on the level icons, I discovered that all these levels have their own names, which are Tundra, Ice Cave, Isolation Zone, Lost Way, Temple of Silence, and Sin. The first two sound reasonable enough, but the others I have no idea. I'll start with the Tundra level. The Tundra is about what I expected. It's quite pretty to look at. Godzilla plays like normal, but he moves slightly faster, which is nice. The music here is a new track which has a subtle yet foreboding vibe to it. It has a definite wintry sound and seems more advanced than the usual NES music. Stage creatures are no longer dinosaurs. Instead, the Tundra is populated with various weird beasts. I suspect this will be the case for the rest of the game, but I don't know for sure. There's not a whole lot going on in here. I don't have to use many attacks because most of the creatures here are non-aggressive. It's actually rather calming. The snowfall has turned into a blizzard. It's hard to see, and I'm coming across more and more bodies buried in the snow. The snow went berserk and made it almost impossible to see when I reached the end of the level. When it started coming down like this, I could tell that my observation time was over, so I got to the end quickly. There wasn't much resistance from enemies. Actually, I didn't come across anything living near the end. Alright, on to Ice Cave. After having to deal with the blizzard, I'm somewhat glad that this level is quote-unquote indoors. I can't go left for obvious reasons, so I head to the right. The music is very odd. Somewhere between relaxing and mind-numbing. These blue creatures are enemies that chase me around. They don't deal much damage, but I prefer to outrun them, trying to conserve my health here. There are numerous spiked pits I have to jump over. It's tricky to do so without running into the beasts. You can see me failing at that in the screenshot. I also have trouble with these things that use freezing breath. They seem to hone in on my presence and wait to attack at the most inconvenient spot. The level ends with a mini boss fight against this crystal-covered creature. There's very little room to move without getting stabbed by icicles, though the boss doesn't seem affected by them. He moves fast and can spin in the air, but he's not much tougher than the other enemies. The first real boss is a crab called Ganymedes. Maybe that's a Godzilla monster? I've never heard of it before. The fight was quite easy. The crab moves forward and back while snapping with its claws, then jumps and spits. I made short work of it by constantly kicking it in the face. Things are going pretty well so far, but I am only halfway through. This level is some kind of platform in space surrounded by floating crystals. Very slow and lonely sounding music playing in here. Some of the crystals have baby-like things inside them, which I can knock out by punching the crystal. When I punch an empty crystal, it takes me to a small boxed-in area. I went into 4 crystal rooms. The first was the screenshot above, the second was the same except the room was empty. The third sent me to a frozen corridor where I had to run past snake monsters that emerged from holes in the wall. And the fourth sent me to this little character. I walked up to him and a text screen came up. He had something to say. The first man to walk on the moon was Ezekiel Zanderfruit. Citation needed? No, seriously, I don't get it. And that was the end of the level, apparently. Another boss fight. This time the opponent is a giant turtle called Kamebis? I don't know how to pronounce these names. It's slower than Ganymedes and doesn't have any ranged attacks. But it's more damage resistant, and it doesn't seem to move in a set pattern. Sometimes it extends its neck out to bite me, but that's easily avoided. I'm getting a little concerned by how low my health is. I can only hope the game increases my life meter soon. Lost Way is also a floating level like Isolation Zone, except with a cloudy background and numerous platforms. The music is actually pretty gentle and calm. It sounds like a lullaby. I proceeded in the direction of the arrows, though I would have gone to the right anyway. This level has me on edge because I can't always tell if I'm going to land on a platform when I jump, or if I'll just make Godzilla fall to his death. It might seem like the platforms are densely packed from the screenshots, but it's more like there are clusters of platforms throughout the levels, some of which have wide spaces in between them. I'm having to make many leaps of faith. There are plenty of creatures here, some of which are enemies from previous levels. Among them is the Ice Breather. Damn it. It's easier to get rid of them here than it was in the caves because I can make them fall off the blocks. I kill all the Ice Breathers I see to prevent having one of them freeze me mid-jump. That would be disastrous. After wandering around for a few minutes, I found this platform of gold blocks that moves up and down. It took me to an area with a blue dinosaur. Also, why is everything blue in Gelid? Which I thought was an enemy at first, but instead of attacking me, it started following me around. As the dinosaur and I march on, we see many other creatures wandering around, looking just as confused as us. That's when I realized that the arrows don't actually lead anywhere. They're intended to lead the occupants of this place into dead ends. So, now I'm ignoring the arrows and instead looking for the gold blocks. I've got no idea which direction the exit might be, but I have a hunch that those will lead me to it. There's also something that looks like a floating blob of snow. I don't know what that's about. After using 2 more gold elevator blocks, we found this little guy, who spoke.
I am Esau. I don't know how I got here. Please help me.
I felt sorry for the poor what's-it, so without even thinking about it, I blurted out, "Sure."
Thank you.
He responded to what I said, and that freaked me out. I hadn't pressed any buttons or anything, but Usal heard my voice somehow. It made me jump, but he seems harmless enough, so I'm going to keep on looking for the exit. And we found the exit. Took about 6 minutes of backtracking. The exit ended up being somewhere behind the spot where I started. Alright, next up is Temple of Silence. Right from the start, an enemy comes crawling at me. It's this slug-looking thing with its arms tied and mouth sewn shut. Has no attacks except running at me. There is no music or any other sound here. There's a lot of enemies in this level. I'm attempting to jump over or run past them. The temple appears to be nothing but a hallway of enemies. Got to the edge of the hall. There was a drop which put me in another hall beneath the first one, going back to the left. I don't have a lot to say about this level, except that it has some damn strange looking enemies in it, and the complete lack of sound gives me an uncomfortable feeling. Not to mention the statues. Here I am going through the end of the level. Lots of those ugly multi-face head things are floating around. And that's the last of the Gelid levels. Well, almost. Still gotta get through Sin. Before I dive in there, I'm trying to figure out what this might be. The name is very vague, but it suggests that this will be something unpleasant. The level icon gives me no hints. Yeah, I don't know. Here goes nothing. It's a boss fight. I should have known. As soon as I heard the music, I could tell this would be a boss. Got up close and heat beamed, but it kicked me. It didn't do much damage, but I've only got 4 bars left, so I can't take too many hits. I try to run up and hit him and get smacked aside. If I'm too far away, he starts using a freezing beam out of his eye. The only way to beat him is to keep moving constantly. The hyperactive squirrel method of battle proved to be a winner. Lethar eventually grabbed Godzilla, and that's when he got a heat beam to the face. After Lethar died, an image of a gate appeared on the screen. It had 7 holes. One had Lethar's icon in it, and the other 6 were empty. After pressing start, I'm sent back to the title screen. I'm going to turn the game off for now. Well, that was insane. While playing the game, I got so wrapped up in it that I sort of forgot that none of this should have been happening. The game does seem to follow specific themes, with everything in Gelid being cold and blue, but for the most part, I feel like there's a traffic jam going on in my brain. I need a break.
I told you before, I don't know how the game does these things. If you're suggesting I put these graphics in the game myself, you're mistaken, because this is the first I've seen any of it. Looks like the game has recreated itself since I played it. That's no good!